So today we have Martin Luther King Jr. and he's going to talk to us about the March on Washington they just had. So where did it take place?
The March on Washington took place at Washington, D.C., and we started at the Washington Monument, and then we went to the Lincoln Memorial, where I had my I Have a Dream speech.
So who was all at the March on Washington?
There was over 200,000 demonstrators, and there were black and white people, and they came together to fight for racial equality.
So what is your group trying to achieve on the March on Washington?
Well, we were trying to fight for more African American rights, like in the job sector, and more freedoms for African Americans.
Martin Luther King, can you tell us about yourself?
Well, I'm 34 years old. I'm married to my beautiful wife named Coretta. I'm the president of the SCLC, and I'm a Baptist minister.
So when did the March on Washington take place?
It took place last Wednesday on August 28th.
Today we have a representative from the SCLC. So tell us about the SCLC.
Well, it stands for the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, and it was founded in 1957, and our current leader is Martin Luther King Jr.
So what is the SCLC trying to accomplish?
The SCLC is a group trying to achieve racial equality through nonviolent memes and protests.
So tell us about some of the previous events of the SCLC.
Well, there was an incident with Rosa Parks once, an African-American lady who tried to sit in a white-only zone of a Montgomery bus in Alabama. And because of that, we decided to boycott their buses for 381 days and did so successfully. And we did freedom rides as well, and the first one consisted of 7 blacks and 6 whites who left Washington, D.C. into the deep segregated South.
So when do you guys start these freedom rides?
Our first one was done May 4th, 1961.
What are you guys trying to accomplish with the freedom rides?
We were trying to test the Supreme Court's ruling on Boynton v. Virginia, which stated that segregation on buses and trains was unconstitutional, and we wanted to see if they would uphold this by allowing both blacks and whites to transport on them. And we're trying to segregate cities in the South.
What cities in the South are you guys trying to desegregate?
We're focusing on Albany, Georgia, Birmingham, Alabama, and St. Augustine, Florida.
How is your group trying to desegregate some of the cities in the South?
We're trying to desegregate these cities by doing peaceful protests such as sit-ins and other nonviolent memes. The SCLC joined local movements for mass protests and also black voting rights.
What do you see as the future for the SCLC?
We see a brighter future for all Americans, not just African Americans, but for all races, and we will continue to do our works despite what happens to any of our members, and we'll continue to fight for what we think is right.
Of all the days to do the March on Washington, why did you choose August 28th, 1963?
We chose that day because this year marks the 3rd anniversary of the Brown v. Board of Education court case.
So what is the Brown v. Board of Education?
The Brown v. Board of Education was a court case that declared segregation illegal across all schools in America.
Where did the case of Brown v. Board of Education take place?
This case took place in Topeka, Kansas.
Some live footage from the march to show you.
Desegregation, racial equality. Desegregation, racial equality.
Black equals white.
So Martin Luther King, how do you feel like this march is going?
I feel like it's going really well.
Do you think people are noticing your cause?
I think so.
Why are you for segregation?
I do not support racial equality. I am for segregation.
This is the police. Stop marching.
You can't arrest us. This is a peaceful protest.
You're under arrest. So Martin Luther King, how do you feel about that one man that promoted segregation?
I didn't really like him. He was pretty mean, and we were being nonviolent, and he just started throwing stuff at us.
How do you feel about the one police officer that tried to stop your march and arrest one of your people that was in the march?
I wasn't very happy about it. We were just walking around protesting peacefully, and he decided to arrest us, and that's not right.
We also have quotes from Martin Luther King's speech, I Have a Dream.
I am happy to join with you today in what will go down in history as the greatest demonstration for freedom in the history of our nation.
What did you mean for the first part of your speech?
I meant that America would remember the March on Washington for forever because of the impact that it made for racial equality. We cannot walk alone. And as we walk, we must make a pledge that we will always walk ahead. We cannot turn back.
So what did you mean by this part of the speech?
I meant that America needs to unite together so that we can get things done easier. Let us not wallow in the valley of despair. I say to you today, my friends. And so even though we face the difficulties of today and tomorrow, I still have a dream. It is a dream deeply rooted in the American dream.
What do you mean by this part of the speech?
Well, I meant that we're always going to have problems, but we should look past them and try to overcome them so that we can accomplish whatever we want. I have a dream today. I have a dream that one day my 4 little children can live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but the content of their character.
What do you mean by this part of the speech?
I mean that I don't think that the kids of America should have to live in a place where they have to be segregated and they can't play with whoever they want. This is our hope. This is the hope that I want to bring back to the South. And if America wants to become a great nation, this must become true.
What do you mean by this part of the speech?
I meant that in order for America to be great and work properly, it needs to be desegregated, and America needs to unite together as one. When this happens, and when we allow freedom to ring, when we let it ring from every village and every hamlet, every state and every city, we will be able to speed up that day when all of God's children, black men and white men, Jews and Gentiles, Protestants and Catholics, we will be able to join hands and sing in the words of the old Negro spiritual. Free at last, free at last. Thank God Almighty, we are free at last.
So what do you mean by this final part of your speech?
I meant that it doesn't matter if you're black or white or anything. No matter what, we should always be together. It doesn't matter your religion, race, or anything.
This is Ernest Billingsworth for Channel 6 News, and we have a report today on the March on Washington, a civil movement. There has been a successful march for racial equality for African Americans this previous Wednesday, August 28, 1968. The march started at the Washington Monument and it ended at the Lincoln Memorial. It consisted of an estimated over 200,000 people marching for civil rights, a quarter of which were white. Marchers held signs and nonviolently protested for racial equality.
This has been Michael Ullman on the Channel 6 News with Martin Luther King.